When we talk about the power of selflessness in intimacy, we are not just discussing a physical act, we are diving into the very essence of human connection. A man who understands this truth realizes that intimacy is not a transaction. It is an exchange of energy, emotion, and devotion. He does not approach a woman with the mindset of what he can take or what he can gain, but rather with the question of how he can give, how he can serve, how he can create a space where she feels seen, cherished, and valued. This shift in perspective changes everything, because when a man chooses to give selflessly, he becomes more than just a partner in the moment. He becomes a presence that leaves a lasting impact on her spirit. In a world where so many men are taught that intimacy is about dominance, about conquest, about proving their worth through what they take, the man who chooses selflessness stands apart. He carries a different vibration, one that speaks louder than words ever could. He communicates through his actions that love is not measured by possession, but by generosity. This does not make him weaker, it makes him infinitely stronger. It takes courage to give without expecting, to pour into someone else without keeping score. It takes strength to find joy in another person's pleasure and fulfillment. That kind of strength is rare, but it is the foundation of trust, the seed of deep love, and the root of an unbreakable bond. When a man learns to be selfless in intimacy, it reshapes not just the relationship, but his entire character. Because the truth is, how you show up in one area of life is how you show up everywhere. A man who is selfish in the bedroom is usually selfish in business, in friendships, in family. He thinks first of what he can gain. But a man who learns to be a giver in his most private moments has trained himself to think differently. He has rewired his mind to understand that contribution is the highest form of fulfillment. That mindset does not stay locked in the bedroom. It spills over into his career, his health, his dreams, and his legacy. He starts seeing opportunities not in terms of what he can take, but what he can create for others, and that makes him magnetic. Women can sense this difference instantly. They can feel when a man is self-absorbed, when he is there only to satisfy himself, and they can feel when a man is truly there to connect. The energy of selflessness cannot be faked. It radiates from him, in his eyes, in his touch, in the way he breathes in her presence. This kind of man does not chase validation, because he already knows who he is. He does not seek approval, because his confidence comes from the joy he brings. And because he does not demand, he receives more than most men could ever dream of. That is the paradox of selflessness. The one who gives the most receives the most. Think about it. The man who takes may get temporary satisfaction, but it fades quickly and it often leaves emptiness behind. The woman feels used, unvalued, unseen. But the man who gives creates a different memory. He imprints on her not just physically, but emotionally. She remembers how he made her feel. She remembers that she was safe, that she was honored, that she mattered. That memory does not fade. It deepens. And it creates a bond of loyalty, of respect, of admiration. That man does not need to chase love, because love flows naturally toward him. Selflessness in intimacy also requires presence. To give fully, a man must be there fully. He cannot be distracted, thinking about his own needs, his own worries, his own ego. He must surrender to the moment, listening not with his ears, but with his intuition, feeling not just with his hands, but with his heart. That kind of presence is rare, because most people live their lives half present, half distracted, half committed. But when a man shows up with his entire being, giving his energy to create joy for another, he enters into a higher state of awareness. He taps into something spiritual. That is why intimacy at its highest level is not just physical, it is sacred. And here's the truth most men will never understand: when you give selflessly in intimacy, you are not losing anything. You are multiplying, you are expanding your energy. You are proving to yourself that your value is not in what you hoard, but in what you offer. And this realization creates a ripple effect. A man who knows how to give in love begins to attract opportunities, wealth, health, and happiness in ways he never imagined. Why? Because the universe responds to givers. It rewards those who pour out because they have made themselves vessels of abundance. So when we say that the man who is selfless in intimacy is powerful, it is not about a single act. It is about a lifestyle, a philosophy, a way of living that declares, I am not here just to take. I am here to create, to contribute, to give the best of myself. That is the mark of a man who stands above the rest, a man who cannot be forgotten, a man who transforms every connection he touches. Confidence through vulnerability is a concept that many men struggle to fully grasp, because they have been conditioned to believe that confidence is all about appearing untouchable, unshakable, and invincible. They are told from an early age that to be a man means to never show weakness, to always be in control, to keep emotions locked away behind a wall of toughness. But the truth is, that kind of confidence is nothing more than a mask. It is fragile, and the moment life applies pressure, it cracks. Real confidence is something entirely different. It comes not from pretending to be unbreakable, but from daring to be seen as you are. Vulnerability is not the absence of strength, it is the deepest expression of it. When a man is vulnerable in intimacy, he is showing that he trusts himself enough to drop the armor. He is saying, I do not need to prove anything to you. I am enough as I am. That kind of courage cannot be faked. It is the courage to allow another human being to see beyond the image, beyond the performance, into the raw, authentic self. And here is the irony. What most men try to hide is the very thing that makes them magnetic. Women are not drawn to perfection. They are drawn to honesty. They do not fall in love with the man who never shows fear. They fall in love with the man who admits his fear and faces it anyway. That is confidence through vulnerability. Think of it this way. A man who hides his emotions may appear strong on the outside, but inside he is fragile, always worried about being exposed. Every interaction becomes a performance, a constant effort to maintain the facade. But a man who embraces vulnerability has nothing to hide. He is free. He does not fear exposure, because he has already exposed himself in the purest sense. He knows that real power does not come from controlling others' perceptions, but from controlling his own inner world. Vulnerability is not weakness, it is freedom, and freedom is the foundation of true confidence. In the realm of intimacy, this truth is amplified. A man who is willing to be vulnerable with a woman shows her that he is secure enough to let down his defenses. He is not afraid of judgment, he is not afraid of being laughed at or rejected, because he knows that his value is not dependent on approval. This creates a space where she too feels safe to open up, to let go, to show her authentic self. Intimacy without vulnerability is just an act, but intimacy with vulnerability becomes a spiritual connection. It becomes a moment where two souls meet, not just two bodies. Most men think that confidence is about control, about domination, about always having the upper hand. But the truth is, control is born of fear. The need to dominate is just the fear of being seen as less. Vulnerability, on the other hand, is the highest form of control, not over another person, but over yourself. It is the ability to say, I do not fear what happens if I reveal my truth, because my truth is my power. That kind of confidence is unshakable, because it does not rely on external validation. It comes from within, from a place of wholeness. And here lies another paradox. When a man allows himself to be vulnerable, he does not lose respect, he gains it. Because people, especially women, can sense authenticity. They can feel when a man is hiding behind bravado, and they can feel when a man is showing up as his real self. The first creates distance, the second creates trust. And trust is the currency of love, loyalty, and lasting connection. Vulnerability also unlocks a deeper kind of strength. It is easy to hide, it is easy to build walls, it is easy to play the role of the stoic, untouchable man. But it takes real courage to be open, to say, here I am, with my flaws, my fears, my doubts, and my desires. That is not weakness, that is a declaration of strength. Because the man who owns his vulnerability cannot be manipulated by it. No one can use against him what he has already accepted within himself. That is why vulnerable men are often the most powerful leaders, the most magnetic lovers, and the most grounded human beings. In moments of intimacy, vulnerability is what transforms the experience from something physical to something transcendent. When a man allows himself to be seen, not just his body, but his emotions, his passion, his soul, he creates a bond that is unforgettable. A woman does not remember the man who played it safe, who hid behind the mask of toughness. She remembers the man who dared to open up, who let her into his inner world, who showed her that he trusted her enough to reveal his true self. That kind of moment etches itself into her memory because it is rare, it is real, and it is raw. And here is what most men do not realize. Vulnerability does not make a man less desirable. It makes him irresistible. Because women are not seeking a machine, they are seeking a human being. They are not impressed by walls, they are impressed by courage. They are not drawn to the man who hides his heart, but to the man who shares it. Confidence through vulnerability is not just a quality, it is a magnetic force. It pulls people in, it deepens connections, and it creates a sense of safety that makes love possible at the deepest level. So the man who learns this lesson, who embraces vulnerability as a strength, discovers a version of confidence that cannot be shaken by rejection, by failure, or by judgment. He becomes unbreakable not because he hides his cracks, but because he shows them and proves that they are part of his beauty. And that is the kind of confidence that inspires, that transforms, and that lasts a lifetime. Respect that extends beyond the bedroom is one of the most overlooked yet most powerful qualities a man can embody. Too often, people mistake intimacy as something confined to physical connection, a fleeting act of passion, a temporary spark. But in reality, intimacy is just a reflection of something far deeper. It is a mirror of the respect and honor a man carries for the woman he is with. Respect is not something that starts when the lights go off and bodies come together. It is something that lives in every glance, every word, every gesture, every choice. A man who respects a woman only in private, but disregards her in public, has not understood what true intimacy means, because intimacy is not confined to moments of physical closeness. It is woven into the fabric of everyday life. When a man respects a woman, he values her not for what she can give him, but for who she is. He does not measure her worth by her body, her beauty, or her ability to please him. He sees her as a whole being, a mind, a soul, a dreamer, a creator. He acknowledges that her existence holds meaning far beyond what she contributes to his comfort. This kind of respect creates a foundation that no amount of physical passion can substitute. It builds trust, and trust is the soil where love grows. Without it, everything else eventually fades. Respect and intimacy means understanding that a woman is not an object to be used, but a partner to be cherished. It means listening when she speaks, paying attention when she expresses her needs, honoring her boundaries, and treating her with dignity at every level. When a man carries this respect into the bedroom, the experience transforms. It is no longer about self-gratification, but about connection, harmony, and shared joy. She feels safe, she feels valued. She feels seen, and in that safety, she opens herself fully. That is when intimacy transcends the physical and becomes emotional, even spiritual. But respect must live outside those moments too. The man who speaks kindly to his partner in private, but belittles her in front of others, does not understand respect. The man who is gentle in intimacy but careless with his words when disagreements arise does not understand respect. True respect is consistent, unshaken by mood, unbroken by circumstance. It shows up in how he introduces her to others, in how he defends her when she is absent, in how he celebrates her strengths instead of fearing them. A man who respects a woman is not threatened by her power, her intelligence, or her independence. On the contrary, he takes pride in it, because he knows that her shine does not dim his. It adds to it. This kind of respect elevates not just the relationship, but the man himself. Because respect is not something you give only to others, it is also a reflection of how you see yourself. A man who disrespects women reveals the truth of his own insecurity, his own emptiness, his own lack of self-worth. He lowers himself in the process of trying to lower another. But a man who treats a woman with dignity elevates himself. He proves that he understands value, that he can recognize worth outside of himself, and that he is strong enough to honor it. Respect beyond the bedroom also sets the tone for lasting connection. Physical passion may ignite a relationship, but it is respect that keeps the flame alive. A woman can forgive mistakes, she can endure hardship, she can overlook imperfections, but she cannot thrive in a space where she feels disrespected. Disrespect corrodes trust, and once trust is gone, no amount of attraction can bring it back. On the other hand, respect builds resilience. When storms come, when disagreements rise, when challenges appear, respect holds the relationship together. It becomes the anchor that prevents love from drifting away. And what makes this principle so powerful is that women can feel it instantly. Respect is not something you can fake. It shows in your tone, in your patience, in your willingness to listen rather than impose. It shows in how you handle her dreams. Do you dismiss them, or do you support them? Do you belittle her struggles, or do you stand beside her through them? Every little action speaks, and together they form the language of respect. When a man extends respect beyond the bedroom, he becomes unforgettable. Because for a woman, respect is the foundation of desire. Passion without respect may burn quickly, but it also burns out. Respect, however, fuels a fire that lasts, a fire that deepens with time. It makes her feel not just desired, but valued, not just wanted, but honored. And when a woman feels honored, she gives her love freely, fully, without holding back. She invests herself in the relationship, not out of obligation, but out of devotion. Respect also teaches balance. It reminds a man that intimacy is not about power, but partnership. It teaches him that love is not about control, but connection. It makes him realize that the strength of a relationship is not measured by who leads or who follows, but by how both move in harmony, respecting each other's rhythm. This understanding creates peace, and peace is the ground where intimacy flourishes. So respect that extends beyond the bedroom is not just about how a man treats a woman in moments of passion. It is about how he values her existence, how he speaks her name, how he holds her heart, how he carries her presence even when she is not around. It is the constant choice to honor her humanity, to recognize her worth, to uplift her spirit, and to build a love that is not only passionate, but enduring. The abundance mindset in relationships is a force that reshapes not only how love is experienced, but also how life itself is lived. At its core, it is the understanding that giving does not diminish you, but multiplies you. It is the belief that love, like energy, expands when shared, that joy is not a resource to be guarded, but a flame that grows brighter when it lights another. Too many people step into relationships with a scarcity mindset, approaching love as if it is a transaction, as if giving too much will leave them empty, as if vulnerability will cost them more than it will return. This scarcity mentality poisons intimacy, creating suspicion, fear, and competition where there should be trust, faith, and generosity. The abundance mindset, however, shifts everything because it asks not, "What can I get?" but "What can I give?" When a man embodies abundance in a relationship, he stops keeping score. He no longer measures affection against affection, effort against effort, or love against love. He gives freely because he knows that in giving, he expands the relationship, and in expanding the relationship, he expands himself. Scarcity sees love as limited, as something that can run out. Abundance understands that love grows the more it is expressed. This does not mean self-sacrifice to the point of losing yourself, but rather recognizing that your highest fulfillment comes not from hoarding affection, but from creating it. In intimacy, the abundance mindset becomes a powerful expression of this truth. A man with abundance does not enter the bedroom thinking of what he will take, but of what he will contribute. He understands that pleasure is magnified when shared. That connection deepens when both partners feel fulfilled. He knows that his role is not to extract, but to create, not to consume, but to contribute. This perspective transforms the energy of the encounter. Instead of pressure, there is presence. Instead of anxiety, there is flow. Instead of selfishness, there is generosity, and generosity always multiplies the bond. The abundance mindset also impacts how conflicts are handled. In scarcity, arguments become battles to win. Each person guards their pride, their ego, their side of the story. But in abundance, arguments become opportunities to grow. The question is not, how do I prove I am right? But how do we come out of this stronger? That shift in focus prevents love from eroding under the weight of ego. It allows forgiveness to flow because forgiveness is abundance. It allows patience to exist because patience is abundance. It creates a space where both people can be flawed and still feel safe because safety is abundance. A man who lives with this mindset also attracts differently. Scarcity energy repels. It pushes people away, makes them feel they are walking on eggshells, fearing judgment or depletion. Abundance energy, on the other hand, pulls people closer. It is magnetic. Women feel it immediately. They sense when a man is rooted in giving rather than taking, when his energy is expansive rather than draining. It shows up in his words, in his gestures, in his presence. He does not make her feel like love is conditional, but like love is natural, effortless, ever flowing. That is why abundance-minded men rarely have to chase love, because love flows to them. This mindset also extends into the long-term vision of a relationship. Scarcity looks for survival. How do we keep this together? Abundance looks for growth. How do we make this greater? It is not satisfied with just existing. It seeks to create, to expand, to build something lasting and extraordinary. A man with abundance sees his partner's dreams as part of his own. He does not fear her success, he celebrates it. He does not see her independence as a threat, but as an asset. He knows that when she grows, the relationship grows, and when the relationship grows, both flourish. Even outside the romantic connection, abundance changes how love is expressed. A man with abundance compliments without hesitation, uplifts without fear, supports without calculation. He does not hold back affection as a bargaining tool, nor does he ration his presence as leverage. He understands that giving his best does not make him lose. It ensures that the relationship reflects his highest self. And in doing so, he receives love in forms far greater than he could have demanded. There is also a spiritual dimension to this. The universe itself operates on abundance. Nature never withholds. A tree does not limit how many fruits it will produce because it fears running out. The ocean does not hold back its waves in fear of exhaustion. Everything in creation thrives on the principle of giving, and in giving, it sustains itself. When a man adopts this principle in relationships, he aligns himself with the natural flow of life. He becomes part of something greater, and his relationship becomes a reflection of that greater harmony. Abundance also shifts how a man sees himself. Scarcity says, "Oh, I am not enough, so I must protect what little I have." Abundance says, "I am more than enough, and therefore I can give without fear." This self-perception changes how he walks, how he talks, how he shows up in love. A man who knows he is enough does not fear loss, because he knows that even if love ends, he is still whole. And ironically, it is that very wholeness that makes love last, because love cannot thrive where there is fear, but it flourishes where there is freedom. So the abundance mindset in relationships is not a tactic, not a strategy, not a technique. It is a way of being. It is living with the awareness that love is infinite, that joy multiplies when shared, that fulfillment comes not from hoarding but from giving, and that the greatest power a man can carry in love is the power to expand it, to nurture it, to make it something that not only lasts, but grows into something extraordinary. The connection between energy and attraction is something that many people underestimate, yet it governs so much of human interaction. Attraction is not just about physical appearance, status, or words. It is about the invisible energy that radiates from within a person and silently communicates more than any action could. When a man understands this truth, he realizes that intimacy is not only physical but deeply energetic. Every touch, every glance, every word spoken carries energy, and that energy is what creates lasting attraction. Physical beauty may catch the eye, but energy captures the soul. A man who knows how to cultivate and channel his energy becomes magnetic because people feel his presence before he even speaks. Energy is not something abstract or mystical. It is real and tangible. You can feel when someone enters a room whether they bring light or heaviness with them. You can sense when a person is confident, open, and loving, and you can sense when someone is closed off, insecure, or bitter. This energy exchange is even more amplified in intimacy. A man who approaches a woman with selfish, hurried, or shallow energy will always leave her unsatisfied, no matter what physical act takes place. But a man who enters the moment with patience, generosity, and presence creates an atmosphere where she feels safe to surrender, safe to open, safe to connect. That is the power of energy. When a man gives without expectation, when he takes joy in bringing joy, his energy shifts. He radiates abundance, and abundance is deeply attractive. This kind of energy cannot be faked because it comes from intention. It is not about techniques, tricks, or rehearsed moves. It is about the vibration he carries within himself. If he is grounded, calm, and centered, that energy tells her that she is safe, that she can trust, that she can let go. If he is scattered, insecure, or impatient, that energy creates tension and attraction fades. This is why true attraction is more about who you are being than what you are doing. Women, by nature, are intuitive to energy. They may not always articulate it, but they feel it deeply. They can sense whether a man is driven by ego or by heart, whether his actions come from love or from neediness, whether his presence is uplifting or draining. A man may impress with charm for a short time, but his energy will always reveal the truth. This is why cultivating the right energy is essential, not only for intimacy, but for life. When your energy is clean, strong, and generous, people are naturally drawn to you. They want to be near you because your presence elevates theirs. The connection between energy and attraction also explains why giving is more powerful than taking. When a man gives with sincerity, he releases an energy of openness and expansion. This energy is magnetic because it mirrors the natural flow of life. Life itself is about giving and expanding. Taking, on the other hand, carries an energy of scarcity and contraction. It pulls inward, it diminishes, it drains. People instinctively pull away from that kind of energy because it feels heavy, restrictive, suffocating. But when a man gives freely, when his focus is on creating joy for his partner, he taps into the flow of life itself, and that flow makes him irresistible. This connection is not just limited to romantic or physical intimacy. It reflects in every area of life. In conversation, the man who listens deeply and shares openly radiates energy that draws people in. In business, the man who seeks to add value rather than extract value becomes a magnet for opportunity. In friendships, the man who gives support without calculation attracts loyalty. Energy is the silent communicator that goes beyond words and actions, and it determines the level of attraction in every human exchange. The beauty of this principle is that energy can be cultivated. A man does not have to be born with magnetic energy. He can build it. It starts with awareness, with recognizing how his inner state affects his outer presence. If he carries anger, resentment, or insecurity, those vibrations will seep into his interactions. But if he cultivates gratitude, love, and self-assurance, those vibrations will radiate outward, creating attraction without effort. This is why practices like mindfulness, meditation, gratitude, and self-reflection are so powerful. They cleanse the inner world, and when the inner world is clear, the outer energy becomes magnetic. In intimacy, energy is everything. A woman may forget the exact words you spoke or the details of what you did, but she will never forget how your energy made her feel. Did she feel valued, safe, cherished, and adored? Or did she feel rushed, neglected, or unseen? That memory of energy lasts far longer than physical sensations. It becomes etched into her body and soul. That is why men who master their energy create unforgettable experiences, not because of any particular act, but because of the way their energy elevated the moment. Even science supports this truth. Human beings exchange energy constantly through body language, tone of voice, eye contact, and even the electromagnetic fields our bodies naturally produce. When two people connect deeply, their heartbeats and breathing patterns synchronize, creating harmony at a physical level. This is why true intimacy feels different. It is not just bodies moving together, it is energies aligning. That alignment creates attraction that feels almost mystical, but it is simply the natural result of shared energy. So when a man learns to cultivate his energy, to approach intimacy with presence, generosity, and openness, he becomes a magnet in every sense. He no longer needs to try to impress, to perform, or to dominate. His energy speaks for him. It tells her she is safe. It tells her she is valued. It tells her she is desired in the purest way. And because energy is remembered more than anything else, she carries that memory with her long after the moment has passed, deepening the attraction and strengthening the bond. Leadership through love, not control, is a principle that separates men who merely exist in relationships from men who truly transform them. Too often, leadership is misunderstood as dominance, as if being a leader means imposing authority, demanding obedience, or proving superiority. That is not leadership. That is insecurity disguised as power. True leadership is not about control, but about guidance, inspiration, and influence born out of love. A man who leads through love understands that the highest form of strength is not in forcing others to follow, but in creating an environment where they willingly choose to. In a relationship, this becomes even more powerful because love thrives not under control, but under freedom. A man who leads with love is not concerned with ego. He does not measure his worth by how much authority he holds over his partner or how much she complies with his wishes. Instead, he measures his strength by how safe, supported, and empowered she feels in his presence. Leadership in love is about lifting, not suppressing. It is about bringing out the best in another person, not dimming their light to make your own shine brighter. When a man embraces this philosophy, he changes the dynamic of his relationship from a battlefield of power struggles into a sanctuary of growth, trust, and mutual respect. Control is born from fear. Fear of being abandoned, fear of losing relevance, fear of not being enough. A man who leads through control is really trying to mask his insecurities. He uses dominance as a shield, thinking that if he keeps everything under his command, he will be safe. But what he fails to realize is that control suffocates love. A woman may stay under control for a time, but her spirit will wither, her passion will fade, her trust will erode. Love cannot thrive in an environment where one person is trapped under the will of another. Love needs air, space, and freedom to expand. Leadership through love, however, comes from confidence. It comes from a deep knowing that influence does not require force, that respect does not require fear, and that devotion does not require chains. A man who leads through love does not need to demand loyalty, because loyalty flows naturally toward him. He does not need to force respect, because respect is given freely to those who give it first. He does not need to control affection, because affection blooms in the soil of freedom and care. This kind of leadership is subtle but powerful, gentle but unbreakable, quiet but unforgettable. In intimacy, this principle becomes especially clear. A man who tries to control the moment drains it of joy and spontaneity. He makes intimacy about performance, about roles, about expectation. But a man who leads with love allows the experience to flow. He guides not with commands, but with presence. He invites rather than demands. He creates safety, and in that safety, passion blossoms naturally. His leadership is not about controlling the outcome, but about creating the environment where connection thrives. That is why women are drawn to men who embody this quality, not because they seek control, but because they crave the kind of leadership that liberates them rather than confines them. Leadership through love also extends to the vision of the relationship. A man with this mindset is not content to simply maintain what exists. He seeks to build something greater. He leads by example, showing commitment through his actions, integrity through his choices, and devotion through his consistency. He does not dictate the direction of the relationship unilaterally, but he inspires his partner to dream alongside him. Together they co-create a vision, but he takes responsibility for ensuring that vision is nurtured, protected, and pursued with love. This is leadership, not controlling the path, but illuminating it. A man who leads with love also understands that leadership requires service. To serve does not mean to lower oneself, but to recognize that true power comes from giving, not taking. The greatest leaders throughout history have not been those who demanded obedience, but those who sacrificed for the well-being of others. In relationships, the same principle applies. A man who serves his partner with love earns her respect in ways control never could. He becomes the kind of man she trusts with her heart, her dreams, and her vulnerabilities, because she knows his leadership is not rooted in selfishness, but in devotion. This kind of leadership also brings stability. Life is full of uncertainty, challenges, and storms, and a relationship will inevitably face them. When a man leads with control, those storms shake the foundation because control is rigid and rigidity breaks under pressure. But when a man leads with love, his foundation is flexible, resilient, and enduring. He does not crumble under adversity because his leadership is not about holding everything tightly but about guiding with steadiness. Love makes him adaptable, patient, and wise, qualities that sustain a relationship through hardship and make it stronger on the other side. And what makes leadership through love so magnetic is that it is empowering. A woman who is loved this way does not feel diminished, she feels expanded. She does not feel like she is being carried as a burden, but like she is being uplifted as a partner. This inspires her to give more, to love more, to trust more. Together, the bond deepens, because love-led leadership creates a cycle of mutual growth. Both rise higher, because neither is trapped under the weight of the other. In the end, leadership through love, not control, is the mark of a man who understands that strength is not measured by dominance but by influence, not by how tightly he can hold on, but by how freely he can give, not by how much power he can exert, but by how much love he can create. It is the recognition that the true measure of a man's leadership is not in how many people fear him, but in how many people feel safe, valued, and inspired in his presence.